The Mandalorian Season 3 Episode 4 Chapter 20 on Wednesday is directed by Carl Weathers, and some huge information just dropped from the man himself. Taking to Twitter, he went straight to the point and revealed the next episode is called The Foundling. Written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, this episode is just over half an hour in length, so short and hopefully sweet, and based on the title alone, I assume this episode is all about Grogu, but they might also draw parallels to Din Djarin's early life too. They're both foundlings in their own right, and their individual stories share similar themes. Some Star Wars fans have already made the assumption that this means we're going to see the rest of the Order 66 flashback, and who took Grogu from the temple. The tease began in Chapter 13 of Season 2, when Ahsoka revealed that Grogu was taken from the Jedi Temple the night of Order 66. He was then hidden for many years, and his mind goes dark. Could this dark and sinister section of his history overlap with the Bad Batch Season 2? Could we see that in the final 3 episodes? So after The Mandalorian Season 2, in the Book of Boba Fett, thanks to Luke, we saw parts of Grogu's memory from that night in a flashback. Jedi Masters falling to the floor of the Jedi Temple as the 501st took them out under the influence of the inhibitor chips, as Palpatine declared, execute Order 66. And now in The Mandalorian Season 3 Chapter 20, are we finally gonna learn who burst through that door? Is it just clones to take him to Palpatine? Could it be Anakin, Barriss Offee, Quinlan Vos, Mace Windu, Jocasta Nu, or someone else? All of the ones I just mentioned are pretty likely candidates. Let me know in the comments down below who you think it was. Now, as you're probably aware, and I covered this the other day, Rosario Dawson teased that Ahsoka might be appearing in the next episode. Maybe she already knows who took him. What if she knows and just didn't tell Din in Chapter 13? Maybe her presence is going to be enough to trigger Grogu's recollection of that tragic night. Or maybe she's going to do what Luke did when he helped him remember, put his hand on his forehead. Ahsoka might be aware that awful chapter of his life is something Grogu still struggles to get over. I think he's got PTSD, and he's slowly but surely remembering all of those events, all of the horrible stuff that happened, but he's lucky to still be alive. As I said, there might be a parallel to Din Djarin's childhood after being saved. We might learn more about Din's early life on Concordia with Death Watch and then the Tribe, an orthodox faction that grew out of it and separated from it. But I've got to say, whatever it holds, I'm sure it's going to be amazing. The sheer talent of Jon and Dave, I've sung their praise a million times, and of course Carl Weathers, fantastic both behind and in front of the camera. This awesome graphic of the High Magistrate's Greef Karga has been making the rounds. His clothing becomes more elaborate and eccentric every season. I love his Season 3 robes the most. The structure of the episode is not yet known, and how Grogu and maybe Ahsoka play into it are a mystery, but we do know one thing: part of the episode is on Nevarro, and Gorian Shard's pirates are challenging Mandalorians, recruited to help Greef. From Chapter 17, Season 3, Episode 1, it was very obvious Greef has a business history with Gorian Shard, who is very important for the future of the Mandoverse, as his crew and pirates are the main antagonists of Skeleton Crew, the upcoming John Watch show featuring Jude Law. So seemingly small moments and interactions, even some of the background characters, have a huge importance later on. Dave Filoni also did this in the Clone Wars, the master of setup. And I should say guys, that scene in the Book of Boba Fett was a huge tease for what's to come. That was only the first half of this flashback. We need to see who's going to come through that door. Grogu's future in many ways is dependent on overcoming his past. And while these flashbacks are amazing fan service, I don't think that's all they are. I think they have a deeper meaning. They're very important. I reckon they're put in for good reason that connects to the current story. If it's someone like Barriss, the tie into the Ahsoka show is obvious. Did she fully turn to the dark side? What happened after the Clone Wars? She's a Miri Allen who gave up the ways of the Jedi and framed Ahsoka, so some fans have assumed that she's the seventh sister, but Dave Filoni has said many times they are two separate Miri Allens. I do suspect Dave wants to tell the story of Barriss, and there was an Easter egg in the wall of the Jedi Temple, the crest of the Miri Allens. Could that be Barriss? But regardless of our theories, I can't help but imagine them using unused Kenobi footage, and it's going to be Hayden as Anakin walking through that door. Imagine him looking at Grogu and sparing him. And here's a good time to remind you guys, both Anakin and Grogu were born in the same year. I don't think that's a coincidence. With Disney's obsession with dyads, could these two be a dyad in the Force? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. And just a recap of the Book of Boba Fett scene, here is my dramatization. The silence was disturbed by a rustling in the grass, and Grogu opened his eyes, distracted by the sound of an approaching frog. The child turned to watch the frog, then, after a moment, he levitated it up into the air, bringing it nearer to his mouth. The frog croaked, twirling and kicking its legs, as Grogu guided it towards his open mouth. Luke opened his eyes and saw what was happening. Grogu, the Jedi Master said with a touch of reproach. The child looked at him ashamed, dutifully chastened, and the frog dropped to the ground and hopped back into the pond with a splash. Luke regarded the child for a moment, then closed his eyes and raised one hand towards the pond. Moments later, Grogu's eyes widened as a flotilla of frogs rose from the water, wiggling and kicking in the air. Luke made a small gesture and the frogs fell into the water once again. Luke stood. "Alright, let's go for a walk." They started down the path through the trees, Luke helping Grogu along the way. The child levitated gently, hopping to keep pace with the Jedi Master. Luke said, "I want to tell you about someone you remind me of." His name was Yoda. He was small like you, but his heart was huge, and the Force was strong with him. He once said to me, "Size matters not." Skywalker looked down at Grogu. He said, "That's how he used to talk. He would speak in riddles. Have you heard anyone talk like that back home?" Grogu looked up scared, in silence. "Do you remember back home? Would you like to remember?" Luke placed one hand on Grogu's wrinkled head. "Let me help you remember." Closing his eyes, the child ventured into his own past. In the depths of his memory, he saw 3 Jedi Knights defending their temple from the battalion of clone troopers, Order 66. The air was thick with smoke and blaster fire. As the 501st Clone Battalion advanced, Jedi fell one by one in front of Grogu. But somehow he survived. His eyes opened again, and he saw Luke standing there looking at him. Luke sat down. "Welcome back," the Jedi Master said. They were sitting in front of a pond with the mountains around them in the distance. "The galaxy is a dangerous place, Grogu. I need to teach you to protect yourself." So there you have it, my dear friends. In my opinion, one of the best scenes from the Book of Boba Fett. It's not the most popular show in the world, but to me, it certainly had its moments, and Chapter 6 From the Desert Comes a Stranger was one of those highlights. So as I say, share your thoughts in the comments down below of who you think took Grogu. Remember, it was not necessarily a rescue. He could have been taken and put on Mount Tantiss. And so finally, my dear friends, the most recent issue of Star Wars Insider has a full episode guide to Andor Season 1, a summary of every episode. It's great for those who haven't seen the show, but one plot point I completely forgot about was Andor's long-lost sister. Is he gonna find her in Season 2? And teasing the second season, Cassian Andor himself, Diego Luna, teased Season 2 as, quote, "many beautiful things to see." Super exciting stuff. Share your thoughts on everything we spoke about in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and if you want access to videos not found here on YouTube, then click the link down there in the description. That will take you over to Patreon. But until the next one, guys, may the Force be with you, always.